Hello, everybody. Yes, you've got me in all my glory today. The reason being is because the silly computer decided to be a real pain in the you-know-what. So I've had to go with my backup plan and simply use my cell phone to do the video. And I've got this nice shiny light on my head, so how about we do that a little bit? Does that look a bit better? Love these lights in this office of mine. Installed them myself. You can see them up on the ceiling behind me here. So I'm sitting here live on my phone on Facebook. I could even tune in myself and watch if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. And there was a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. So let's do that so I can look at my other machine here. See, what I've got is I've got two machines. They sit right there. There's my microphone that I normally use in all its glory, but you can see my two machines there. One is a PC, the other's a Mac, and they sit next to each other side by side, happy as two machines can be. So we're going to vertical video today rather than, ooh, that's an interesting view. Vertical video today rather than the standard audio only show, simply because my computer was not connecting and it sounded like garbage. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about a couple of things, and I'll be referring to them on the screen like I normally do. Most of the time you can't see me because I do an audio-only show for this kind of thing. I do have a regular video show that I do as well, but that one happens sporadically. This one I try to do on a regular basis. This one was done an hour late. Actually, now that once I've ironed out all the problems, more like an hour and a half late because, well, simply because it took me that long to figure out that the computer was just not going to cooperate with me. So, two things that I wanted to talk about today. And both are not happy stories at all. First one is the terrorist attack up in Edmonton, 3 hours north of me, so it's a little close to home. To speak nothing of the people I know, people who live in Edmonton as well. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about was this horrendous act down in Las Vegas. And I'll start with this one because it just happens to was in the midst of performing. Just happens to be up on the computer screen in front of me. The basic storyline of what happened in Vegas is there was a big country and western show at the Mandalay Bay. Now, I've seen the Mandalay Bay. It is at the extreme end of the strip. I believe it's the south end. It's basically across the road from the major international airport in Las Vegas. And there's a music festival across the road from the Mandalay Bay up at the in fact, the music festival is directly across the road from the hotel right next door to the Mandalay Bay, which is a big pyramid known as the Luxor. Absolutely gorgeous hotel. I've seen that one as well. I've been to a show at the Luxor. Inside, it's totally different than what you expect it to be on the outside. Anyway, so what happened is there was this music festival, and a 64-year-old guy by the name of Stephen Paddock was in the hotel. He was on the 32nd floor, and he opened fire on the crowd with fully automatic machine gun. Nobody really knows why he did it. There's nothing to indicate, as of yet, as to why he did it. There's nothing, nobody seems to be saying anything about his political views. Nobody knows if he's a left-winger or right-winger or middle-of-the-road guy. So what I want to say about this, it's really simple. I'm going to caution everyone, don't jump to conclusions. We don't know anything yet And of course, left people will be saying, well, it's those right-wingers, and there's those right-wingers with their guns, and then the right side will then remind the left side that, you know, hey, it was your guy it was a Bernie supporter who shot up that baseball practice. So nobody really knows. So don't blame anybody but Stephen Paddock until we know anything more, and we may never know. And it's tragic. 58 people as of the last count are dead. More than 500 are hurt, including at least one person from Calgary. I know that for certainty. I don't know who. It's this. All I know is that it's the sister of somebody who's on the local radio station here. So that's what I wanted to say about Las Vegas. So anyway, back to this Vegas thing. I don't know what's going on in the States. It's just one thing after another lately. A lot of it is surrounding this whole free speech issue and people trying to shut other people down and such. This one, I just don't know. So leave the guy alone until you know more. And just don't jump to any conclusions. Now, what we can do, though, is I'm going to switch gears now. I'm going to talk about another incident. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the quick weather report for Calgary. We need some levity between these two stories because they're both just horrible. Weather report for Calgary in one word: yuck. Okay, back to the other stuff here. Now, up in Edmonton over the weekend, a guy hopped into a U-Haul panel van, or a U-Haul cube van rather, and went on a rampage. He hit a cop, jumped out, tried to stab the cop, got back in the thing, took off past a police check stop, and ended up plowing into a crowd of people, and the police were able to make him lose control and roll the thing. He was acting alone, but here's what we found out about the guy. He was Somali, he was a refugee claimant, and he had an ISIS flag in the van with him. So he was obviously Muslim. Now, just because he's a Muslim doesn't mean he's a terrorist. But this is being called a terrorist attack. And this guy has actually been investigated before. They've investigated him back in 2015. And at the time, the RCMP said they didn't have any evidence to voice any concerns. But they had concerns now, of course. And this just goes to show, and I was warning about this back in 2015. It goes to show the absolute disaster that our refugee claimant system has become under the Trudeau government. Because Trudeau is the guy who said, we'll bring these people in. And he opened the borders pretty much to anybody, anywhere, and he said that these people would get screened and vetted and made sure that they were the people that we wanted to come. Clearly, the system isn't working. And I got crucified by my own friends for voicing this concern. And look at this. We've now got, fortunately, thank God, nobody's dead. But what's the story? Muslim, ISIS, Somali, refugee. Right there. It's proof. The system isn't working. What we need to do is we need to find a way to provide refuge to people legitimately seeking refuge. Refugees are people who are searching for safety and an opportunity to get away from a war. If you're in Syria and ISIS is coming and trying to force you to convert to Islam and you don't want to, and you're able to escape and you get out of Syria with nothing but the clothes on your back and somehow manage to get to Canada and say, I'm here, I'm looking for safety, this is where I'm from, then as far as I'm concerned, until the crisis in Syria is over, these people should be allowed to stay here if they are legitimate refugees. Instead, we're bringing over anybody and everybody with what appears to be minimal screening, minimal vetting, to make sure they're actually who they say they are and here for the reason they say they're here. And then do something like this, drive a U-Haul van into a crowd of people and try to kill a cop. So I think the first thing we need to do is ban all immigration and migration from countries on the terrorist sponsor list. And then the next step is to review and improve and check out and make sure that these things work, the screening procedures. The next thing is, until someone's refugee claim is approved, then they have to stay in detention of some kind. I'm not saying keep them in prison, but, set up a compound somewhere where they are kept isolated and call it quarantine for all I care. But they got to be quarantined until their claim and their status and their has been processed, and they've been vetted to make sure that they're who they say they are and they're not going to cause any problems. After that, then you give them what you need to give them for food, for shelter, to get them started, and you send them on their way. And while they're in this quarantine place, there's nothing to stop them from taking English classes, from taking training. That is good use of taxpayer money, because now we've started the process of helping these people better themselves and integrating with society once they get out. Of course, they're welcome to leave and go back whenever they want. It's not really detention, as in you're not in prison. You're free to leave, but we're just not going to let you into Canada proper. Now, after that, once the claimant is here, once the claimant is out in society, we're trusting them, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, which we should, because people are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And if something like this happens with a refugee claimant, you ship them back where they came from, after applying whatever punishment you feel is necessary and appropriate. In this case, a hefty prison term for attempted murder, careless driving, and all the other things. And once the prison term is over, back to Syria, or back, in this case, to Somalia they go. Because we don't want people like this here. Of course, what's going to happen is this case will take forever to grind its way through the legal system. And then, of course, there'll be deportation hearings if it ever comes to that, if his refugee claim ever gets denied, which is unlikely. So what'll end up happening is this guy will probably end up disappearing into society, never to be seen or heard from again. And ISIS gets yet another terrorist victory. It's a sad state of affairs. And this is what happens when you elect a government of bleeding heart liberals who have never met a refugee they didn't like, never met a tax they couldn't hike, and never met a Canadian's safety they couldn't compromise. Just to show you how out of touch they are, Ralph Goodale, Canada's National Minister of Public Safety, I believe. Yeah, the Federal Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness is up on the screen right here. He referred to it as a bombing. That's right. He called this event up in Edmonton a bombing. That's how out of touch these guys are. They're over there, they're out there in Ottawa, in their ivory tower known as Parliament Hill, and they haven't got a freaking clue. Thanks, Ontario. Thanks, Quebec. Thanks, Maritime Provinces. You guys voted for these guys. And out here in the West, we've got to suffer the consequences. Thanks a lot. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm Steve Britton. You can find me on Twitter at SCBritton. You can find me on Facebook, which is where you're watching now if you're watching, which doesn't look like it. Steve Speaks Freely. You can find me on YouTube. Stephen Britton Canada is my channel's name. My channel's address. And of course, I'm also on Patreon at SC Britton over there. I'm on Minds.com at SC Britton. Patreon is SC Britton rather. There's no at on Patreon. If you want to slide me some, send me some change and help me out a little bit, it is more than appreciated. It's never expected. It's always appreciated. And anything that does get sent my way will, help, of course, pay the bills, help because I'm doing this as a bit of a as a source of income, as a job. But as well, it'll help me with the reinvesting into the whole setup here, and improving the equipment, improving bandwidth, so I've got a better stream, and basically making this show better and better and better. So that's it for me. I'll be back on Wednesday, going to talk about possibly a couple of things. I am working on a so-called real video, and so that'll come as soon as it can. Today was a rough day, yesterday was a rough day, but it is coming. So be patient for that. And in fact, I'm working on two. I'm working on a huge one, and it's been problematic because it's so big it's actually bogging down my computer. So, but it's coming along, and it'll be ready when it's ready. So with all that, I'm Steve Britton, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Or I'll talk to you on